Hello and welcome to my latest video presentation, and this one is for NuRack. Now this is a really exciting new product and I can't wait to show you how it works. Now what you can see in front of you is something typical of what you could create in NuRack by simply bolting little modules together and creating your own custom interface for them. Even a novice could do this. So I'm going to explain how to do that today. Having developed many Auv3 effects and plugins, one thing has become apparent, which is the DAWs that we use as hosts do not have flexible routing, and a lot of them will not allow the complex wiring of effects that we require. So what I've done here is I've built a toolbox of modules which we can bolt together. Even a novice can bolt them together and then use the interface builder to actually mash them all into a single interface. It's a great way to experiment with combinations of effects, and what's more, it's great fun too. So let's take a look. So to get you started, I'm going to open NuRack in standalone mode, simply because there's more room here to show you things. And as you can see, the interface is quite sparse, just a few items on the left. At the top of the left bar there is actually a menu. This is where you load and save your racks. But if we go to settings, just for now, I want to point out that there is an option here for multi-channel input. And you should really only enable that if you're running in something like AUM, which supports multi-channels. Some DAWs will not function properly in that mode. Also under automation there's a compatibility mode with default too. I suggest you stay in that mode. Now directly beneath the menu button we have the input mode, and this is either single channel input or multi-channel input. In multi-channel input we can process 3 incoming audio sources through 3 separate racks. In single channel mode we can redirect the incoming audio through one of 3 separate racks using these 3 blue input buttons. In this mode we support seamless switching between racks. And you can do that via pressing the buttons or via MIDI input. Now below these 3 input buttons we have the interface builder icon, but since we have no modules in our rack it does nothing at the minute. And below that we have the edit button, the final button, and we need to be in this mode to add anything to a rack. So I'm going to press the input button and you'll see a little plus button appear at the beginning of the rack, and when you click it, it displays a menu of categories. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add a few modulation effects to this rack, starting with the chorus. Now as you can see, the inputs are on the left and the outputs are on the right, and we can click on an output and then link to a second effect. Now these are just bare bones effects with knobs and sliders and buttons and what have you. They're not intended to be the finished interface, although you can use them in this form. Now as we can see here, they are wired up for us and we can pinch and zoom to actually zoom out, see the connections. Now if we tap on an input somewhere within that effect chain, we can insert another module at that position. And finally I'm going to add a set of VU meters to the end, and these are the basis for our new effect. Now the important thing to note here is that the audio is flowing in through bus A and is flowing all the way from left to right. But remember, this is just one of 3 possible racks. So let's switch to rack 2 and add a couple of items to rack 2. Now one of the great things about NuRack is automation, and we have a ton of automation features within here. One of which is an XY pad, which I'm going to add now. And now we need to control something with the XY pad, so let's go and add a filter with a cutoff and resonance. And let's make this pad control the filter's cutoff and resonance, and then pass it through a reverb. So as you can see, we have a vertical assign and a horizontal assign here, and we can literally pick the module within the rack and then pick the actual knob that we want to control within that module. And once we've made our assignments, we can touch within the pad area and watch those automations take place. Now we also have other automation modules that can use incoming MIDI data and velocities and such like, but we'll cover them later. Now one important thing here is you can seamlessly switch between these racks, and if you've got a delay going, it'll ring out for so long as you switch the rack and fade in the new rack. So it's an excellent thing. We can even switch racks based on incoming MIDI data. Now in this connection mode, the individual modules just have the bare essentials, the controls needed to actually make that effect work. The idea is to bolt these together and create your own unique interface. And I'm just going to load in a interface just to show you that. Now as you can see here, the little interface builder icon is actually active because this is an interface we've designed for a chain of effects. And if I flick back in out of edit mode, we can see it's just a compressor with some VU meters. But what we've actually done is we've pieced them together. And if we enter edit mode here, I can resize the frame of this effect, and I can drag and drop various elements, resize them, color them, using this little pop-up palette editor. There is alignment tools and snap to grid on drag and all sorts of stuff here that will help you. So all the interface elements are all resizable and colorable. Even the VU meters, we can even drag them and make them bigger and smaller. We even have graphing modules and LED modules, and you can even add your own logos and stuff to this, which I'm going to probably show you next. So basically I'm just deconstructing something here to give you an idea, and we got all that from just two options, two modules that we added in connection mode. Now as I mentioned earlier, you can actually copy and paste your own little logos and things to be part of the design. If we look at this here, this BitCruncher, we have a BitCruncher logo there. Just one thing by the way, if you double tap on the interface, it goes into something called presentation mode, which hides all the controls. So if you loaded a custom interface within a DAW and you turn it into that mode, it will state save that particular mode, so you'll not see the controls. In fact, if you save in connection mode, it'll restore in connection mode. If you save in interface builder mode, it'll load in interface builder mode. And if you're in presentation mode on top of that, it will load in presentation mode. So let's go into edit mode here, and we can see a couple of things spring out, and that is that there's two buttons that are hiding at the top there. Now anything that's superfluous to your design that you don't want, you can drag up and leave at the top of the display, and when you go out of edit mode, they will disappear. Now these logos that you paste, right now you can colorize the logo because it's in a mode which allows us to colorize. If you double tap on the logo, it switches between various modes. One will preserve the colors but maintain the aspect ratio. Another one will stretch, and then there's a third mode which allows you to colorize. Now if ever we screw up, we can pick reset layout from the interface builder menu, and we will get all the original modules laid out one after another within this frame. And this is the kind of starting point from where you make your edits. If you click on an item, the tool palette pops up. From there we can colorize and such like. Now you'll notice that each of the modules has a frame and a header which can be turned off. So if you look there, I've just turned the frame and header off for the touchpad, and we can do the same for the other interface elements. Now you'll notice as I drag this touchpad around that it's actually cut off by its surrounding module frame. But if we turn off clip to bounds within this palette, it allows us to freely drag objects outside of the bounds of the original window. Now everything we've seen up to this point has been pretty straightforward in terms of wiring, but here we have a splitter that splits the signal path into two, and each branch has its own set of effects. And if we look at the end of this chain, we'll see that there's actually a mixer module that merges the two back together again. So we've actually got parallel processing going on here, and this is just one example of how complex we can get. Now if we go back to the beginning of this video, I opened with a graphic EQ, and if we switch back to construction mode here, you can just see it's a graphic EQ made out of a graphical interface and a set of sliders. When we're in edit mode here, we've got full control over the graphical interface. All these sliders can be manipulated and resized. As I say, it's very easy to construct something that looks quite complicated out of these building blocks. And here we can see a similar type of construction, which is actually a parametric EQ with a graphic view attached to it. Again, we're in presentation mode here, so there's no actual controls visible, but if you double tap on the outer interface, they'll slide back into view, and we can go and flick out and find out what modules have been used to create that. If we click the edit, we can see the visual links. So another quite simple construction from just 2 modules. It can get as complicated or as simple as you need. Now in this next example, I'm going to create a scratch pad. I'm going to use a tape delay, and I'm going to use an XY pad to modulate the delay and the warp settings of the delay. As you can see, simple wiring. I've created a simple interface, so let's just have a listen to how that sounds. Now we're going to attempt to recreate the traditional shimmer effect using a delay line, a reverb and a pitch shifter. And just for an added measure, I'm going to add a tremolo to the end of this so we can do some modulation over the top. So let's see what this sounds like. So I think you'll agree that's a reasonably convincing shimmer effect there, and we just cobbled together a few effects, and by using various combinations you can come up with your own sounds. So my final example, I want to take a look at modulation effects. Now usually they have some kind of LFO behind them, so both your traditional flanger and phaser have an LFO, but in this case we can detach the LFO and actually attach control of it to the XY pad. And we have other modulation effects such as the flanger, where we can also disable the LFO and take remote control of it. Now in this example I've used the XY pad because it's a visual thing, you can see this, but in reality we can actually use MIDI data and velocity data to control these kind of things too. Now I'm aware that I've missed a lot out in this video and I've skimmed through this at quite a speed. I just want to cover a few little topics before I go. First of all, when we have a rack like this, we can pinch and zoom to zoom out and in. That works both in this mode and interface builder mode. If we press the button to show the links and we tap on a input from an effect, we get the option to insert an effect. I think I went through that before. But if we tap on an output, we have an option to remove the link. Now the other thing I want to cover is how to delete an effect, and to do that you just simply swipe up with 2 fingers and hit the remove effect button and the effect is deleted. So that about brings my video presentation to an end. Hope you enjoyed it and hope to see you soon.